leading data in the world, but if your content isn't, where it needs to be, if your creative's not where it needs to be, and it's not built for the platform that you're delivering on, I would say you're producing probably a lot of waste, or it won't be as effective as the ones that are. And so for us, that's a really key point for us, is making sure the creative and the content's right. The data and targeting is obviously important, but we want to make sure that we are balancing the art with the science. And I would say with that, I'll end just by saying, when we think about, especially with media buyers and planners, I think it's embracing a marketer mindset, right? Getting out of the habit of just obsessing on, the classic metrics of reach, CPM, traffic, and making sure we are considering all pieces of the puzzle, right? Whether it's the brand strategy, the creative strategy, how do all those pieces fit together, and then how do we implement that and execute on each platform? I previously worked at TikTok before joining 7 Brew, and I worked for a couple advertisers, and one thing they were all guilty of was repurposing TV assets for TikTok, right? And that's a very isolated, specific example, but I think it's a good example of neglecting the art, right? They knew they needed to be on TikTok, they wanted a really efficient rate, and they wanted good reach, but the content was not where it needed to be, right? And so, again, TikTok's its own animal, but I think it's, a sign of where we're at as an industry, and, and hopefully something that we can cure.
I think to your very astute point, specifically with regard to TikTok, sometimes the decision's taken out of your hands, right? When the government comes in, and now it's like rocket ship, right? And now it's like, well, what are you going to do? Where are these dollars going to go? Where are consumers going to go? Brands go where the people are. So first, it's like you have to solve for that, I think, to an extent. But to mirror what everyone just said, constant state of flux, right? You cannot get comfortable, number one. Number two, testing budget, absolutely. I feel like you have to continue to stretch yourself and look for what is going to be the next thing on the horizon, right? TikTok seemingly came out of nowhere, right? It went from, I remember seeing kids using it in high school, and now it's, you can't live without it. But there will be something else. There will always be something else. So what is that next thing? And so how do you identify what's the next thing? But you can't be too soon. You can't be too late, right? I think a lot of us are overinvested in linear. But then I think we scrutinize maybe digital too much and linear not enough, right? And so there's an ebb and flow. There's a balance of how do you continue to engage a younger audience, but you don't forego the audience that's currently in your restaurants now. And so there are a lot of factors to kind of balance and maintain. So how do you do that? I think you really need people that live it and understand it. There's really no way to fake it. There's no secret sauce. Like, you just have to just stay immersed in it. And I guess what I can say is, having done this for like 18 years, like, this discipline is what has changed the most, right? Creatives still create ultimately, but at the end of the day, the media component is vastly different. You cannot put together a plan from 1.5 years ago, let alone 3, 5, 7 years ago. Things become obsolete. The half-life of content, of platforms, everything is in a constant state of flux. So I think that's the most difficult question to answer in our industry. One of the most
I'm actually continually surprised at how nimble Subway is. About how quickly you guys jump on things and how quickly you jump on trends and current events and things like that.
I can take no credit for that. Thank you.
I could give it to you, but... Well, but speaking of that, and speaking of, as you just said, though, about not, you can't repurpose, like, broadcast for TikTok or whatever, but what are creative efficiencies can you, make out of this?
Here's what I would say brands should be doing if you're able to, and I'm trying to be forward-thinking, and this may not yet currently exist, but what I'm envisioning is, like, I guess, a desired future state wherein you're still going to need your creative agency, but you may just not need a specific component, right? You still need your big idea, you need your hero campaign, but what I am going to hope is going to happen in the very near future is that can then be distilled down and put into some platform, and then it can just go off and just be taken into every single subsequent social platform or programmatic platform, and like, take my campaign and just boom, give me 300 by 250s, give me social, give me everything, and now everything has now just become more automated and optimized. To me, that should be the ideal state that we should all be like pushing for, so that we can just get in market sooner, get results sooner, and like optimize more seamlessly.
Yeah, our marketing team is 10 people. Most of them are creatives. We have 3 videographers, no creative agency. So we do everything in-house. And I think we're proof that you can even find success with just a lean and mean team. And the Chuck E. Cheese example is a testament to that. I would say with that said, in terms of efficiency, one is, I think, focusing on the right metric, right? Which is not only attention, but ad equity, right? What platforms are actually generating quality impressions? When we think about short form video, and I'm biased here, most of our strategy is focused on social. We're really hyper-focused when it comes to short-form video on average watch times, right? More so than even the rate or how much reach we're achieving, right? If we might reach 1 million people, but if the average watch time is 1.5 seconds, which on TikTok or other platforms is average, I would say a lot of that's waste, right? So how do we get the 4, 5, 6 seconds? And I think this gets into really understanding consumers and the community, right? And how do we create relatable and relevant touch points, right? This gets into the science of brand relevance. But with that said, I would say another thing that we are really leaning into is user-generated content, right? I'd say that's probably one of the most valuable commodities that's overlooked is your fans posting about your brand. We're running a summer campaign that starts actually this Sunday. We identified 50 fans who just organically were talking about us, reviewing drinks. We reached out to them. We're sending them some swag. You'll be amazed what people will do for free stuff. But we got permissions to boost their content, and that costs us barely anything. And I would say I would take that over a highly polished asset any day because it's coming from a real person, unscripted, just talking about how much they love our brand, right? And the more that we can give them a platform and amplify their voice, not only is it incredibly efficient, but it's also effective. It also helps fuel our earned media aspect, which is something we're really, really focused on. So I'd say there's ways to do it even with a lean team, and we're a great example of that.
Just as a quick kudos, first off, to MediaPost for putting together, I think, this panel. What you're seeing here is one really, really big company, a company that has a really large marketing department, one that has more of a nimble kind of ease of access and flow marketing department, and then you got one that's right in the middle. Bojangles, we're right in the middle. And I like to make this fairly clear. Every single channel should have its own individual strategy. And it's important for brands. Listen, we sell chicken biscuits and tea, all right? Let's not overcomplicate this. We sell chicken biscuits and tea. Each individual channel has to have its own individual strategy for one reason in particular. I need to know and be able to articulate to my team what's the importance of this channel to what we're trying to accomplish. Google has to have its own strategy. Meta has to have its own strategy. TikTok has to have its own strategy. And I have to get in front of my leadership as well as our franchisees and our co-ops and say, hey, here's why we're here. And this is what it does to the overall bottom line of your business. If it's impressions based, if it's higher funnel, then I need to be honest and say that it's higher funnel. If it's middle funnel, then it's middle funnel. If it's lower funnel, then it's lower funnel. Be honest and say that. And that's also a call out to our agencies. Guys, we're working with you for a reason. You're creating value in some sort of platform and creating some sort of opportunity for us that we can't do ourselves. Hone in on that. From a creative standpoint, it becomes fairly simple for me. What combination of assets creates the best outcome and result? I don't have the time with a team of 15 people on my team and then a marketing department that's, we have people that are all over the place. I don't have the time to say, look, guys, right now, I need our creative team to go in and change a 5-second ad to repurpose it to TikTok. Like when we create a strategy, like a couple weeks ago, Marquis was talking to us about, it's starting at the brief level. By the time we get something going, there's small room for change and adjustment. And honestly, you mess around and tweak the wrong thing, and you can see performance drop instantly. That's where our agency partners come in, and they can help to fill that space for us. On the brand side, everybody's making great points. We're looking to go where, honestly, we want to be as 95, 96% more reliant on ourselves because we can make changes more instantly. We can make decisions more realistic. We can make more real-time changes to what we think. If a franchisee calls and says, hey, our market is going through a hurricane right now, we can be able to turn on and off the channels and the promotions in a way. We can change the creative. But 4 to 5% is where realistically a lot of brands are going to want to live on the agency side. I can only speak for where we are. Right now, we work specifically. We're looking for specific partners to help us to accomplish specific goals. And creatively right now, nobody has the finite elixir or mix or combo to be able to get creative right. None of us, I know we don't. We literally are always looking for ways to be able to do so. And whether that's through influencer, whether that's through using creative agencies, whether that's through, repurposing our media assets, that changes on a per channel basis, on a per platform basis, based on the strategy. But you have to be able to really kind of make a comprehensive strategy for each individual platform. And then, as a marketer, man, sometimes you got to be willing to say, I truly believe in this strategy. I think this is going to work. Our Google strategy this year with being able to double down on PMax has been something that's worked for us. Last year, it didn't. Meta worked for us better last year. The market changed for us. So just being willing to say this is going to work, giving yourself enough room to make some changes if it doesn't work, but also understanding that it's not a 30-day augmentation here. It's not if it didn't work on the first day of May, then by the first day of June, you're like, let's rock and roll. Let's change this whole strategy. I got franchisees who will call me why did you turn this off of television? And I'm like, if I don't have an answer, they're going to call our CMO. Yo, Josh is over there turning assets off of television. It's we have to find a healthy balance, but it all is based on having a strategy for each individual channel and with each individual partner. And you guys are so important to us. Whether you're an agency partner or you on the tech side, you guys are super important to us being able to get to that end goal and getting over that goal line. But it is our responsibility to get us down the field. And each individual strategy has to be based off what we think is going to work. So.
All right, very good. So now the eternal question, what do we think is going to happen when the third-party cookies go away?
My short answer is, I don't really think much is going to happen. It's whether it happens, when it happens, it doesn't. Not that it doesn't matter, but we will adapt as we always do. I think a lot of the most popular channels don't even rely on cookies. So I am again biased, right? We are heavily invested in social. We're looking at CTV as the next frontier for us, but for us, it's not a huge concern. Now, with that said, right? I think whatever happens, as history is any lesson, what is old becomes new again, right? So contextual, I think, will become more important, right? Understanding, and I actually think this is a good thing, our consumers on a more intimate level, not only in terms of their media consumption habits, but psychographics, right? What makes them tick? And this gets back into
making better content.
Exactly, right? I'm a broken record here. But I think, ultimately, there's a lot of exciting, a lot of things to be excited for, right? I think about Gen AI and the possibilities there in terms of media planning, buying, as well as just targeting and how we can use historical data with campaign data, as well as just, consumer data to put together not only a better recommendation, but really make sure we're putting our dots in the right places. But ultimately, I'm not that worried about it. And ultimately, we are building our CRM and database too. So first-party data, we all know this. It's going to become highly important, but we're finding success even without much of data at all, right? So I think it's, again, to me, content's just as important, if not more important, than the data itself, which might be controversial, but it's been working for us.
My flippant answer is that it's never gonna happen. They just keep pushing it. Every time you look, it's oh, it's delayed again. Oh, it's delayed again. So yeah, 2030 by the time but what I think will happen when it does happen is that it will put a renewed emphasis on these three things that I think are the most important when you're in the decision-making process of how do we partner, how do we spend money. I think you should look at Is there an audience that we can't get anywhere else? Is there a format that we can't get anywhere else? Or is there data that we can't get anywhere else that can be used and leveraged across your marketing plan? So I think, to me, those three things, the data, the format, the audience, right, which all funnel back up to, again, what Cory was talking about, creative, right? And how can you build a message that's going to better resonate with the core consumer so that you can get an improved result faster?
First party, creative, attribution, data. This, to both of their point, this only matters if our CMOs and our board ask us about it. For me, I look at this and I kind of rephrase this question to myself is, will this push me to get closer in first party with our first party consumer? Will this help me to improve the data that we already have and utilize it in a more reasonable, more realistic way? Will I be able to dissect the attribution data to be able to know where we're having an impact and how often we're having an impact? And then how does this help to better equip our creative partners, our content creators, to be able to make better decisions in what they're going to do? The third-party cookie, you know, we're going to talk about this for a long time. I wish Google would tell their PR department to, like, just chill. Like, because every time they put out some information about it, my CMO shoots me a text or somebody from the board sends the information. And I'm like, when it happens, like, we're already going to be ready. I think every brand in here is already ready. They started talking about this 3 to 4 years ago. So I think we're already ready. 3 to 4 years ago, this was like, oh my God, we got to make changes. Then after a year, it's like, oh, okay, we got to start making changes. Then like a year ago, it was like, we don't got to make any changes. Now I'm kind of like, we've already made the changes that are going to be necessary. So for me, it boils down to first party, data, attribution, and content. Those 4 things for me drives the ship. It gets us to the destination. It turns us around, goes back to pick up more information, and then goes back to the place again. That's my magnum opus. That's my North Star. So if third-party cookies is going to help me to accomplish those 4 things, then great. It's another feather to add in the hat. It's another boost to what we're already doing. But if it doesn't affect those 4 things, then, you know, I'm going to start telling my Google partners on our meetings, like, can y'all tell whoever it is from your agency that's putting this out to please stop sending it to Bojangles. Just don't add us in the email. Just, please. And then that's all I have. I mean, that's really how I think about it. I think all of us have to make decisions differently. But if it doesn't affect those 4, I'm okay.
All right. Did we want to see if there's any questions, Erin?
Yes, we have time for a couple of questions.
How you doing? This is Jeff Aldridge, PJX Media. Josh, I love that you said you mentioned each media channel should have their own strategy. From an out-of-home perspective, how are you using out-of-home media both in the traditional sense and in the programmatic sense?
So for a lot of people who don't know, Bojangles, our media is kind of split into that. So that's actually a phenomenal question. We have our traditional media, and then we have our digital media. Out-of-home, for me, on the digital side, hasn't come up as a thing that our franchisees or our co-ops or our senior level executives have said, we want you executing on out-of-home so far. On the traditional side, they're getting hammered with it. You know, and this is because there's a finite number that's being contributed to these co-ops, and the purpose of the co-op is to spend those dollars in advertising to create return on ad spend or return on investment. I sometimes listen to the conversations on the traditional side, and I'm always pushing them to say, listen, it's okay for you not to know the answer to that, but let's go find the answer. If it's through a partner, then it's through a partner. It all is going to boil down to cost anyway. If it's going to make sense for us from a cost perspective, it's all going to boil down to how many eyeballs are actually going to engage and see this advertisement. It's all going to boil down to what's the impact and ultimately what's the drive to the bottom line for the business owner, for the franchisee. But for me, it's all about, like, if we don't have the answer on that side, and I'm going to be honest, I don't have the answer on the out-of-home side right now. But if we have people who do have the answer, I'm all ears. I'm absolutely listening to whoever has the answer for out-of-home. And then the only thing I'm going to always ask is, how does out-of-home impact my individual franchisees in their markets their bottom line. Because 80% of my job is franchisee facing. I have more conversations with them than I probably have with my wife in a week. And like seriously, man. So if it has an impact on the bottom line of these franchisees who will call me at 9 o'clock at night, like, Josh, something happened to my directional board. Like, I mean, these are like our posters, or like, hey man, we were doing something with our own individual dollars in the market for the Little League baseball team, and they just misprinted our name on the t-shirt. And I'm like, bro, I have no idea how I can help you there, but fine, right? Like, ultimately, the same thing kind of applies with out of home. There is an impact. There is some attributive level of impact that can happen and be attributed to digital out of home. I just need to find out what it is. And then I need to be able to quantify it and then make it make sense to our franchisees and our co-ops. And if I can do that, we're 100% full sale.
Marquis, Cory, Joshua, thank you guys so much.